Welcome to the Divine Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Cristina Aroche, and together we are walking the path of discovering your true self and the alignment with your soul. Through these conversations, you will experience a deeper level of connection with yourself and the universe, and most importantly, you will trust in your spiritual journey ahead. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Divine Connection Podcast. I'm so excited because today we are moving on to part 2 of spiritual protection. So if you haven't seen it yet, I also have a part 1, which you can go check out after you listen to this episode. They are connected, but you don't have to watch them in order. This episode today is talking about spiritual protection from the perspective of protecting yourself from other people. So I'm going to dive into the question that I received from my audience and then go into the answer and how to move through that. So the question says, for sensitive people, how can you open your heart but still have energetic protection? Not from bad spirits, but from lower vibe energy like judgments, questions, and ridicule. How can you continue to show up as yourself and continue evolving even in the face of haters and judgers and people that really just don't understand you? I absolutely love this question so much. I feel like I say this every time, but there's so many great questions that come in, and I'm just so grateful that I get to answer these. And I first of all just want to start off by sharing that I strongly feel Archangel Raphael as well as Archangel Gabriel. I feel them both coming in, both supporting everyone who's listening to this, and anything that you take from this episode. Of course, you can continue to deepen into that with Archangel Raphael and Archangel Gabriel on your side. So they are coming in, they are bringing through the guidance for today. So with that said, the first thing that I'll say is that we cannot stop other people from judging us, or we can't we can't live our lives trying to avoid those kinds of situations and avoid those kinds of people and thinking that, well, I'm just going to attract the people into my life that get it and, not attract the people who are haters and things like that. Because sometimes we might feel, and I think for the most part, with regards to our own energy, yes, of course, you're going to be vibing on the same level as other people who are in a similar space as you. But I don't want you to think that just because a hater or someone who's judging or someone who is ridiculing is coming into your life, it's because you manifested them or because you attracted them, because that's not always the case. And the thing to understand, especially for those of you who are light workers, who are healers, who, you're maybe challenging the status quo in some way, and you're an empath and you're sensitive, the thing to understand is that by shining in your light and by sharing truth, you are often going to trigger people. People will be triggered by what you have to say. And when people are triggered, they will start to judge, ridicule, and go through all kinds of things. And so it's not your fault. It's understanding that that is their journey, that is their process. And sometimes we, as healers, are placed in people's paths not just to support them in their healing journey through a quote unquote positive experience of helping them to see things and they are agreeing to what we have to say, but also supporting them on their healing path by triggering them. And it's not that you're intentionally trying to trigger people, but that's just the nature of our humanness, is that we can't please and be the light for everyone. And just because we are shining in our light doesn't mean that people will always perceive it in that way. So that's just the first thing that I want to share that I think is important for us to understand. And I so far have not met anyone who has not faced some sort of judgment, some sort of ridicule, some sort of experience where people are like, no, you're wrong. I've had my fair share of that, especially on my YouTube channel, where if you've ever read the comments on my YouTube videos, especially my older ones, like they're all over the place, from, oh my gosh, that was amazing, to, whoa, you're crazy, or you're wrong, or whatever else people might have to say. So here's what I have to say. I want to share 3 main important tips to support anyone out there who is facing that and who might even be holding a fear of this happening. And maybe that's why you're holding yourself back in some way. So the first thing that I want to share is that it is important for you to recognize that as a sensitive person, as an empath, it is so important for you to have a routine or a practice where you are nurturing your nervous system and nurturing your inner child. Even on days when it's like, oh, cool, like no haters, no judgment, like no, everyone was fine and great and amazing, but you still want to find that space to be able to nurture yourself consistently throughout your journey, especially for those of you who are maybe entrepreneurs or desiring to have your own business. Being a business owner is very vulnerable work, especially in the field of spirituality, as a healer, as someone who is maybe coaching or guiding other people. Like that's just in and of itself vulnerable work. You're putting yourself out there. You are there for people to witness and see, and that takes a toll on your nervous system. And so it is important for us to have a consistent routine and practice where you are nurturing your nervous system and nurturing your inner child. And like I said, it's not only in the face of negativity, like once you face something negative, then you go do that, but it's just being consistent with it to continue to support yourself and to almost be proactive about having that calmness and having that safety being built within yourself, so that when you do face negativity, it doesn't impact you so much and it doesn't bring you down so much, because you've been practicing and focusing on supporting yourself. So the thing about nurturing your nervous system and your inner child is that it's going to be very unique to each person. I'm going to share some suggestions, but really it's going to be for you to find and discover what works best for you. So for me personally, knowing myself, knowing my just how my energy is and what feels most nourishing to me, oftentimes one of the key things is that I need to give myself space to rest and literally just lay on the couch or lay in bed, not necessarily to take a nap. Maybe sometimes might mean that, but not always. Usually for me, that's just being able to just lay down and just release energy from the day. That is the best way that I personally have found that I release energy, is by laying down. And so laying down, and also important, not scrolling on my phone, because if you're just scrolling on your phone on social media, you're still taking in energy. So the point is that you're disconnecting from everything and you're simply being in your own space, being in your own energy. And maybe that means listening to music. Maybe it means, taking some deep breaths. But whatever it is, it's something where you are feeling yourself relaxing in your own body. So that's one way that I found to be super supportive for me. And I've also found that when I don't do that, it's like the energy builds and builds and builds and builds and accumulates. And then I don't feel as good, where I feel like I'm burning myself out. And so I've found, especially on days when I have a lot of client calls or just a lot of outward activity where I'm filming videos or doing whatever, where I'm putting my energy out there, that is when I notice that I need it most, where afterwards I'm going to go lay down. Like I'm probably going to go do that after I film this video. I'm going to go lay down and just take a few moments to just simply be. And I have found that to be super powerful for myself. Other examples might be, you might be the opposite, where you actually need to go and get energy out, like activity wise. Maybe you need to go out for a walk or a run or go to the gym or go do yoga or whatever other activity you enjoy. But for you, it might be something more like that, where that is what regulates your nervous system. So that's why, like I said, this is also really great practice of getting to know yourself, where you're learning what feels best for you and what brings relaxation and calmness and a feeling of centeredness to you, and recognizing how it nourishes your nervous system. Okay, so those are a couple things to just keep in mind. When it comes to your inner child, this is really about being in connection with your inner child and speaking to them and asking them, how are you doing? Kind of like checking in, like, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? Do you need anything? Do you need a snack? What's going on? And just being constantly in a dialogue. I know that oftentimes, especially in my communities, we talk a lot about being connection with the angels and with the divine, and we're, wanting to communicate and pray and be tuned into them. It's just as equally important for you to be tuned in to your inner child as much as you are wanting to be tuned into the angels and to the divine. We have to focus that same attention to our inner child. And it can be as simple as just simply asking, hey, how's it going today? How are you doing? And then, especially in moments when you have been triggered, that is especially a key indicator that something's going on with your inner child. And that is a great place to start, to just simply have a conversation and ask your inner child what they need. What do they need? How are they feeling? What's up? They just need someone to listen to. Okay, I'm here to listen to you. You need a hug? I'm here to hug you. And doing whatever it is that you need to do to support your inner child. And so the more that you build a relationship with your inner child, the more you'll become familiar when your inner child is dysregulated, which means that you're probably dysregulated, which means that we need to do something to address that. So that is the key here. And then, like I said, as you make that a routine and just a regular practice in your everyday life, in the moments when there is a situation where you are judged, where negativity is being projected onto you, or whatever the case is, you almost have like a shield or an armor that's built of peace, calmness, centeredness, feeling supported. That means that that experience won't impact you as much, and it won't bring you down as much. It'll still hurt most likely, but it won't be so like, oh my God, I just feel like I have to get up off the ground now kind of a thing. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to bring through the experience and the energy of compassion and love towards other people. And I find that the easiest way to do that, because sometimes it's not that easy. It's not that easy to be compassionate towards someone who is being judgy or who is saying things about you or whatever the case is. But what I do find can be helpful is to understand that people try to make other people wrong in order to make themselves be right. That they feel that for them to be right, someone else has to be wrong. And that other person has to be you. So you're wrong, and what you're doing is wrong, and whatever else, and I'm right. And that is an ego thing. That's an ego thing that's happening. And so when we can recognize that whatever judgment, ridicule, whatever the thing is that's happening is an ego thing and not something that we necessarily need to take personally, even though I know that that's hard, easier said than done. But the more that we can release whatever that person is projecting onto us as something that's personal, even though they may be directing it at you, understanding that the deeper layer underneath is that it's not about you. It's actually about them. It's all about them. Any sort of projection, any sort of trigger is always about them, even if they try to make it about you. And so the more that we can bring understanding to that, and then as a result of that, compassion and love, where it's like, oh, wow, like you are really hurting right now, or you're in a very deeply ego triggered state. Like, I'm sorry that you're going through that. I'm going to send you love and compassion because I understand that you are in your ego. You are triggered. I triggered you. Guess that's part of my job. Like, but I'm going to send you love and compassion, whether you directly say that to them or not, or just energetically send that to them. But it's understanding that in that love and compassion, we then bring ourselves out of that equation. And as much as that person may want to make it about us, it's not actually about us. And understanding that we most likely just triggered them. And so we can take that understanding and then hold ourselves into a higher level of energy, like a higher frequency, where we're not dwelling in the same lane as where they are. They're looking at things from a whole different perspective. So if we can elevate our perspective of what's happening, then it can take us out personally from being the personal victim and then seeing, oh, they're having a hard time. They're taking it out on us, but it's actually not about us. So that's a second thing that I would say is a really great practice. We're not going to be perfect at it, of course, because we are still human. We still have our egos. So sometimes our ego is just like, I'm not going to let this down. Like, we're like, this is not okay. But the more that we can practice that, the better we will get at being able to see things from a different perspective. And it's all about understanding that it's all about perspective. Everyone has a different perspective about the same situation or the same truth or the same experience. And so it's holding compassion for people in having their own experience and their own perspective, even if it doesn't align with ours. And so then the third thing, the final thing that I'll say about this is that alongside the other two things that I just shared, it is important for you as an empath, as a healer, as a light worker, to build up your sense of conviction within yourself about who you are, about your purpose, about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Like, we have to have a deep and solid foundation of knowing who we are and why we're doing this. And understanding that, again, this isn't about us proving anything about our worthiness, about whether we're good enough, about any of those. Knowing that what you're doing and why you're doing it is because you were chosen, because you have a calling on your heart, because you know that this is what your soul has come here to do, which means that you are doing things as part of the divine's greater plan and as part of the divine's greater will for the collective. And therefore, you were chosen for that mission. You were chosen for that purpose. There's no questioning. Like, the divine is not questioning whether you're capable of this or whether you're worthy of this or whether you're good enough at this. The divine already chose you. You were chosen, which means that you belong. And in our belonging, that is where we can really support ourselves with that sense of confidence in who we are and knowing that I'm here to do this. Like, this is my truth. This is what I've come here to share. This is what I've come here to do. And that's it. Like, no, there's nothing else. No, nothing can convince me otherwise. And so when we can hold that high of a regard and energy for ourselves and what we're doing, it won't matter what people say. It won't matter what their judgments are. It won't matter how much they might ridicule you, because at the end of the day, you're like, my heart and my purpose and my vision is aligned with what the divine has in store for me. And I know that I'm doing God's work through this process, and therefore can't convince me otherwise. Like, I know that this is what I'm here to do. I know that this is who I am. And that's it. And it takes time to get to that place, for sure. It takes time to build that up, but that's something that I would suggest as a practice to keep building that within yourself, meaning you keep reminding yourself of that. You focus on those intentions. You focus on believing in that truth and understanding that that is your truth. And so the more that you build that up within yourself, then in the face of judgments or criticism or whatever it is, it's like, yeah, okay, I hear you, but you're not changing my mind. Like, I know who I am and I know what I'm here to do. And like I said, it takes time. I think we all go through that. I for sure have gotten through this, especially at the beginning of my journey, when people would say whatever they have to say and it would make me question myself. I've had people say, no, you didn't channel the angels. And I was like, what? Really? I didn't? Oh my gosh. And start to go down the spiral. And then at the end of the day, say, actually, no, I did. And I know that, and I trust that. And now it's just like, you can't convince me otherwise. Like, I know what I'm doing, what I'm here to do, why I'm doing it. And no one can tell me that convince me that it's not God's work, because I know that it is. But it's because I've built that level of trust and that level of surrender and that level of conviction within my own self. So that is the other practice that I would recommend, is building up that conviction inside of you so that you are not swayed, so that the biggest wind can blow and not topple you down. And that is, I think, part of our lifelong work as well. But you can definitely build that up strong enough now that, whatever people might be judging you now, it won't be affecting you as much anymore. So those are my 3 tips for anyone out there who is on this journey, who is especially sensitive, is an empath, and you can feel yourself taking the heat. You can feel yourself wanting to shrink in the face of that heat, and instead how you can show up fully as your true self no matter what. So I hope this served you. Let me know your biggest takeaway in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to me on a podcast platform. Please feel free to leave a review Or you can also send me a DM. Let me know how this episode supported you. I love to hear it. And as always, I invite you to submit your questions. You can go to CristinaAroche.com/ask-Christina, or go to the link in the show notes and submit your question. Let me know what you are dealing with, what you're working through, and I'm here to support you, bring through the divine to elevate you and to help you on your journey. So I can't wait to hear from you. I am sending you so much love and angel blessings, and I will see you again soon. Bye. Thank you once again for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. And if you want to learn more about the Divine Connection podcast, you can go to CristinaAroche.com/podcast and learn about how you can be featured on the show.